I'm talking to someone who has straddled 4 decades of fame.
There's a person that people think you are, and then there's the real person. Today is a really good opportunity to sit with Piers and get him to find out who the real person is.
Dannii has never done a full sit-down interview about her life before, and I doubt she will again.
This is the first time I've gone through everything from start till now.
Well.
Well, how did I end up here?
I don't know, but I'm very glad you have.
Kind of strange.
Right, let's cut to the quick. Right now, you are starring...
I love it when he does this.
You are starring in X Factor, which this series has exploded. It is like a real-life soap opera.
It's incredible. It's like the best thing that's happened to me. But at times it's been really tough and character-building.
How vile is Simon Cowell to work for?
Well, you know.
Well, I know how vile he is. I want to hear you say it.
I tell you, you have to start with a compliment.
No, you don't.
He's tough to work for. He should be. You know, he's got a lot of people that he's responsible for.
Well, never mind all that. What about the negative side?
The negative side. He loves himself. His ego's almost as large as yours.
I mean, he also has, I'm told, transformed his dressing room, and he's now got cowhide wall, which he's spent $20,000 on, and has a bubble bath. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but...
Oh, all of it.
It's beautifully done. It's like James Bond room. It's like leather panelling. And there is a bath, and it's like a hotel. There's a bath, and at the end of the bath, there's a TV screen. He said, that's where I'll be watching the dress run from. OK. And so before the first show, I bought him a rubber duck.
And do you lie in the bath with him watching the run-throughs?
Oh, of course.
Is it fun, X Factor, or is it so nerve-wracking because of the sheer size of the show, the number of viewers watching? I mean, can you have a laugh now, or is it too intense?
I think the intensity is what we're all doing, like working with all of the different departments, and I personally get wrapped up in the contestants and wanting to know, do they feel okay when they go out there? I don't think you can be aware that half the country's watching, otherwise you'll completely freeze up.
I mean, it is much harder, I think, for you girls, isn't it? Because the amount of scrutiny that you get, how your hair looks, your dress, the comparison with Cheryl, all that kind of thing.
It seems to be. I don't know why it's that way, because you speak to a lot of women and they go, why do you have to be pegged up against anyone else? You're just on the show doing what you're doing. But I'm sure when you're working with Simon, a little bit they peg you against each other, but it's more intellectually. It's not about your nail polish or anything else, how pretty you are.
Do you feel the pressure about how you look? Do you feel every show you've got to come up with some dazzling new look?
Yeah.
When you wake up in the morning after a big live show and the papers do one of their, who looked hotter charts, and it says, oh, Dannii blew Cheryl out of the water last night. Do you feel a little like, oh, yes?
You give it a little F1. Yes! I think the thing is, I spent so many years reading headlines that I was the fat, ugly sister. You kind of do get a little bit of joy out of going, oh, I look good. Every girl likes that.
Although people think that it was Kylie that was first off the showbiz starting block, in fact, it was you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I bet you got really bad old footage now.
From an early age, Dannii and her older sister Kylie have had a healthy showbiz rivalry.
Dan was the first one to really take off in music on the TV show Young Talent Time, which was huge at the time. Every family was tuning in.
Dannii was the main star of Australian variety show Young Talent Time, leaving big sister to watch and learn.
Dannii was on television every week, and she was one of the biggest household names in Australia.
Dannii was TV royalty. Everyone wanted to be her. All the boys fancied her. All the girls, you know, aspired to look like her. She was the one.
We actually did a segment on Young Talent Time where Dannii introduces her sister Kylie.
Danny's decision to leave the show after 7 years to pursue an acting career left the nation reeling. Both Dannii and Kylie wanted to make it big in Britain, but it was Kylie who exploded first, thanks to her role as Charlene in Aussie soap Neighbours.
I knew more of Kylie with the records that she had out in the charts and everything, and I probably shouldn't admit to this, but I used to watch my Neighbours.
There's always been this idea in the British press that Kylie, if they were a record, Kylie was the A-side and Dannii was the B-side.
Kylie's on-screen success was the launchpad for her musical career, putting her firmly into Danny's territory.
Dannii had lots of top 10 records, but Kylie had lots of #1 records.
But then in 2007, Dannii landed a role as a judge on The X Factor. And the rest, as they say, is history.
I think the British public have finally been able to get to know somebody who maybe before they just didn't really have the chance to know.
She's totally stepped out of Kylie's shadow.
I couldn't do it. I really could not. I'd fall to pieces. I'd be too flustered.
Dannii and Kylie both from Down Under, but Dannii was the one who was seen as down and under, but not anymore.
I mean, you're bigger than Kylie now, aren't you?
I don't think so.
A little part of you thinks so. Come on. There's got to be that sisterly rivalry.
There's not. There is absolutely no rivalry between us unless we're on a Scrabble board. Then I kick her ass.
Does it feel nice to come out of Kylie's shadow a little bit?
I don't wake up and compare myself to her every day, but there's a lot of times when I just thought, maybe I'm not any good at any of this, but I'm being given opportunities and I'm having a great time doing what I'm doing. And when I just focus on that, it's fun.
Have you ever been jealous of her, if
No.
you're honest?
No,
Never?
no. She was better at bowling at one stage. No, seriously, she was a 10-pin bowling champ and she came back with all of these awards and stuff. And you look up to your big sister and you think, you know, maybe one day I'll be good at doing things, but I really don't compare us.
Who's the better singer?
Right now, I would say Kylie.
Right now.
Right now.
And if you both came on X Factor as separate contestants... Oh, come on, it's the business. I mean, who do you think would do better?
I think she'd kick my ass.
You have had an extraordinary life. I mean, you were famous before you were 10. For those who obviously aren't Australian, how big were you?
It was as big as being a star on X Factor today, but instead of being on it for 10 weeks and then walking away and winning the show, you grew up on that show. So I did that for 6 years. So
this was just to explain. This was a show called Young Talent Time. Which one are you?
Bottom left.
Were you precocious, bossy little madam, or?
I would stand up for myself. I was no pushover. One of the guys in the he's not in that picture, but we're very, very good friends now, but he used to really annoy me all the time. He was completely hyperactive, and one day he was just doing my head in when I said, just stop it now, just really stop it, because it's enough. So, of course, he had one more go, and I don't know what happened. My arm came up, and I just went, boom, and I punched him, and he fell over. And I thought, I didn't even know that I could do that. Never messed with me again, I tell you.
By 1989, Kylie is a smash hit in Neighbours, and you pop up in the rival soap, Home and Away. What was the thinking behind that? Because you are putting yourself right up against your big sister.
I left Young Talent Time. That had been my whole childhood. Didn't really know what I was going to do, but I thought I'll stay at school and study, and I quite fancied being a director. And then they said, oh, there's a chance at, being on this soap opera. And I thought, great experience, considering what I want to do, and get out and try something new, learn some new skills.
I mean, what was fascinating about Home and Away and Neighbours was that the stars of these shows in Australia probably thought, oh, we're pretty well known in our own country. Meanwhile, in Britain, they're becoming absolutely huge hits. Did you have any real idea that was going on?
We had no concept when we were in the studio making the show of how big it was in the UK, how it took over, how people cut school to run home and watch them. I just thought it was all pretty weird, wacky, that you're all so into this show. For us in Australia, it was popular, but it was, one of many shows.
Did you like being a pop star? Because you were actually incredibly successful, despite all the people that sneer at you now about your pop career. If you actually look at the number of hits you had, you were successful.
Loved it. I've always loved music. I've always loved being a part of it. And whether I'm mentoring the kids on X Factor or doing it myself, I love it. I just love to be around it all the time.
You've tasted fame. You're having a great, successful pop career as well. But the one thing missing from your life is a man. With her early showbiz career leaving no time for romance, when Dannii did fall in love, she fell hard for fellow actor Julian McMahon, the son of an ex-Prime Minister.
At the time, it was like the most glamorous thing in the world. It was gorgeous, she looked stunning, he was so handsome, Kylie was a bridesmaid. It was beautiful.
When she decided to marry the son of a former Prime Minister, I was a bit concerned about that.
God, was I there. I was invited. It was one of the weirdest weddings I'd ever been to. It was the first real bit of Australian aristocracy I'd seen, and it was really ugly.
And it wasn't long before the newspapers were putting the boot in.
The backlash in the Australian press, certain side of the press, was really horrible, and they just thought, oh, pop star marrying Prime Minister's son, that it could never work.
It had failure all over it.
Having lived under an ever-present media spotlight, it came as no surprise when the couple's marriage fell apart after just 17 months. The fairy tale was over.
She just broke down, and it was really, really hard to see that, because I thought she was doing okay. And you suddenly think, oh, wow, she's just like everyone else.
But rather than let it crush her, Dannii made the decision to shed more than just her tears.
She just got divorced, and I think her self-esteem was limbo low. So I understand what she was doing. She was just trying to reclaim her sexuality and trying to, build herself up in the public eye.
For me, it's always difficult when I see children that grew up with me who become sort of like my own children in a way, do something that I'd rather they didn't. In reflection now, I don't see any problem with it. I just couldn't look at it, that's all.
Playboy was, 2 fingers up to him, and this is what you're missing.
Is that what it was? Was it 2 fingers up?
In the end, it was... I guess it did lift me up, but the reason I wasn't to stick 2 fingers up at Julian at all. When we got married, he wanted to get started in America. I was working in London, and I'm flying between the two to try and see him. And at the point that we divorced, I was 150 grand in debt. I had worked my whole entire life. I'd earned a lot of money over a long period of time. To be that in debt where you cannot pay your rent, on top of the devastation of this marriage didn't work out, and I really thought it was going to. I loved this person. Ever since then until now, it's felt like this big, dark secret of why I did Playboy, and everybody wagged the finger and what a stupid thing to do, because I never, ever wanted to admit the trouble that I was in, and I never wanted anyone to think badly of Julian. I should have been looking at the finances more, got in big, big trouble. It's kind of nice now to say, okay, it did look like the most stupid thing to do, but I had no other choice, and I would never, ever ask my family for money. So I remember having the contract there and my parents there, and like Johnny Young, my parents did not want me to do this. My dad standing there going, when you do this, that's forever. You can never, ever change that. And I said, Dad, I don't have any other choice. Signed the bottom of the contract. Thankfully, the upside was, it actually was fun, and I did feel liberated by it, and at the end, it probably kind of dug me out of a hole, not just financially, but I did get a bit of self-esteem back. I just thought, how could I be so stupid in every respect? How could I have not seen this coming with the marriage not working out? Everyone else could see it. How could I let everything turn into this when I should know better? You know, I worked really hard all my life.
When you were... Do you regret doing Playboy now? Do you wish that it wasn't on the CV that you did it?
No, I don't. I don't, but I feel more relieved now that people know why I did it. And I actually looked at the pictures and I thought, damn, I look all right. And the magazine came out. It was the biggest selling Playboy they'd ever had.
Apparently it sold out in 3 days.
They had to reprint and... And the biggest compliment was girlfriends of mine had gone out to buy it because they know me. They'd gone out to purchase to see what it was all about. They realised they're very tasteful shots and called me up and said, you know what, you look beautiful. And then it felt like a celebration of me, only at that point.
When you met Julian, you were obviously in love with the guy. What was it that attracted you to him?
He was a wild guy, you know. He liked having fun and being a bit crazy and goofy and having a laugh, and, you know, we enjoyed each other's friends, and for me, I thought that's all you want out of a relationship at that stage.
How long did it take you to get over it, do you think?
A long time. I felt kind of uncomfortable and scared that I did not want to get myself into that same situation. It wasn't about not trusting other people and, oh, I don't want a boyfriend because I won't trust him. I didn't trust me. I didn't trust my instincts anymore. You know, I didn't want to be alone, but I certainly thought that being alone was better than messing it up again.
Ironically, Julian goes on to star in the American TV series Nip Tuck about plastic surgery, and you go under the knife yourself.
They're good, aren't they?
Yes. When you'd had your enhancement, how did you feel when you came out and you suddenly had these whoppers?
Knockers. Fantastic. I think it was what I needed at that time.
Any other scalpel work that we should be aware of? Or
We do a bit of tweaks and turns, but, you know...
what kind of tweaks are we looking at here?
I'm not going to go into it, but, you know...
See, one thing I'm quite surprised about is you're frowning. Well, I thought you were the queen of Botox.
I was at one stage. I was the one pegged out as the one having more Botox than anyone, which was very funny, sitting next to Sharon Osbourne.
It's now 2005. You're having a lot of success. You're doing all the clubs. Kylie's career was going great guns as well.
Yeah.
And then right when things are going really well for both of you, something very, very difficult happens. When it was announced that her sister Kylie was seriously ill, the news sent shockwaves around the world.
Messages of support have been flooding in tonight for the pop star Dannii Minogue, who announced today that she has breast cancer.
When the illness broke, it really was that sense that the whole nation felt like they owned this story.
Dannii was besieged with questions about her sister.
All your feelings about your sister's illness is sort of on the front page of the newspapers.
It was an endless questions.
How is Kylie? You know, is she okay? How are you feeling?
And it wasn't the first time the disease had had an impact on Danni's life.
She lost a really good friend to cancer. I, myself, being Danni's friend, was also ill with cancer around the same time. It was like everyone around her. Dad was ill at one stage with the same. It just seemed like everywhere she turned, there was cancer. She found it hard to even speak about for a long time.
And she couldn't let any of her emotions show through because they needed her strength. And that was the most difficult time of her life.
For years, the demands of their careers meant the pair had drifted apart. But Kylie's condition helped bring the sisters closer together again.
She goes into protective mode and she's like a mother hen. In fact, we sometimes call her Nana. She'd hate me saying that.
Nearly every Friday afternoon she'd go on the Eurostar to Paris with her little, wheelie bag. It was like a pet. We used to call it her dog and stroke it, and she'd be running off.
She was incredible when I was ill and would come and put the iPod on and try to get me up and dancing.
She was never going to accept Kylie not being here.
We've become so much closer over the last few years. We're making up for lost time now, and we couldn't be closer, and I'm absolutely so thankful to have someone like her in my life and proud to call her my sister.
How did you hear?
My parents phoned me, and all I could think of was just, I need to be with them now. And of course, it's at least a 26-hour flight away. So just dealing with the shock, packing a bag. It was the longest flight, as you could imagine. You have to refuel at Hong Kong, getting off at Hong Kong, going to the lounge, and then somebody at the lounge says, there's a film crew here, they're trying to get an interview with you. And they could see I was in such shock. And I said, can you please just get me to the plane without having to speak to them, because I haven't spoken to my sister yet, spoken to my parents. She's in shock. I can't speak to anyone before I speak to her. That's insane. So we got on, those buggies that go through the airport with the beep, beep, beep. We're going through the airport. This film crew chasing me, and all I wanted to do was see my gorgeous sister and hug her.
What was the first thing you said to Kylie when you saw her?
I don't even remember. It was just a blur, but it was more about just giving her a hug and supporting her. I mean, she was scared. And being there for my parents too, because at the time I just thought, however scary this is for all of us, I think it's got to be the hardest for the parents. It's got to be.
She had to have an operation 3 days later. That must have been a horrendous 3 days for your family.
In those 3 days, there is so much medical information to absorb, to work out what's the best treatment, who would be doing it, how it would happen, all of that. And that's anyone going through it. They're 3 very, very tough days.
What was good about this terrible situation was it did bring the pair of you closer together, didn't it?
I think you just go to another depth, I would call it, rather than closeness, a depth of... you find strength within yourself that you never thought you had because you never needed it before.
Were there periods when you as a family feared she wouldn't make it?
No. Never thought of it. Couldn't. You don't.
You just refused to?
Refused. Can't.
What was it like the day when she got the all clear?
Well, there's the all clear and then there's the all clear, as anyone who's been through cancer knows. You get the it's all clear now from the operation, it's all clear now from the chemo. You get the it's all clear gone, then you get your 6 months all clear, your 1 year all clear, and the big year, the proper one is the 5 year all clear. We're not there yet.
But it's looked good so far, hasn't it?
It looks incredible, and you know, she's just been so strong, and in my head, nothing's going to come back because it's just not going to happen.
After Kylie's given the initial all clear, you get more good news when you are made a judge on a show called Australia's Got Talent. I mean, I have to say, don't take this the wrong way, but I've seen the Australian show, and they are, apart from you, a very odd-looking bunch. When you watch Britain's Got Talent, say, how do you think it compares the Australian show?
It's a completely different ball game, and for the fact that we don't have that history of kind of vaudeville and performing at the end of the pier, and the whole show's beauty is that it's just such a mixture of the good, the bad, the ugly, the mad and the wonderful. And
that's just the panel, look. Now, it wasn't just Australia that was impressed by your performances as a judge, it was also Simon Cowell. Dannii might have made it as a judge on Australia's Got Talent, but becoming a success in Britain was going to be an altogether tougher ask.
You know, Dannii really had to come into it and prove who she was and kind of prove her worth.
Right from her X Factor debut, her critics were out to get her.
Some people thought, why has she got the job?
People always assume that she hasn't done as much as her sister, so there's that assumption that maybe her sister should be the judge.
And to make matters worse, not everyone on the show welcomed her with open arms either.
You can look at it as it was a desperate measure from an older woman who was not as attractive as the younger woman that's come in.
It's like being the new girl at school, isn't it? And then one of the big girls comes along and, you know, puts you in your place.
After that eventful series, Sharon decided to leave.
When Cheryl joined the show, suddenly the press all jumped on and said, oh, you know, Danni's going to hate it because, you know, Cheryl's younger and prettier. And Dannii was like to me, I don't care who it is, as long as it's not Sharon.
But the arrival of Cheryl only seemed to add to the pressure on Dannii, and everything came to a head during an on-screen bust-up with fellow judge Louis Walsh over a choice of song.
And Dannii, you did nick their song, but it doesn't matter. They were fantastic.
No way! We work on a rota system. We get first pick a song every week.
They have wanted to rule the world from day one.
I don't get
Right, guys, let's not get into recriminations.
There was a fight, and it kind of spilled out on camera.
Next into the spotlight, the overs again, and Dannii. Who's up, Dan?
It's horrible when you see any of your friends cry, so you do want to run up and give them a hug and make sure they're okay.
I felt broken, to be quite honest. I hate seeing Dannii upset for whatever reason. It wasn't just one thing. I think it was a build-up of everything, you know, throughout the series, throughout what has been written in the paper. It was just a real tough time at work for that year.
This season, she's finally put her troubles behind her and has been voted the most popular judge on the programme.
This year with Dannii, I'm not quite sure why everybody has just cottoned onto something that I knew all along. And I find it really annoying when everybody's like, wow, Dannii this year, isn't she brilliant? I'm like, she always was, you know.
I think it's nice that she's finally getting the recognition and the credit that she deserves.
One episode from last year, I'd never watched that one back where I was crying. I just couldn't. So I was a bit shocked to see that.
Why did you lose it then, do you think?
It sounds so stupid now when you look at it, and it was all over, who stole the song? But at the time, like Chris said, it was just a build-up of everything. And I just felt like within my character, it's so much about what is right and wrong. I don't care about bad headlines or someone having an opinion of me, but saying something that isn't true, that I wouldn't do, is something I do get upset about.
Of all the people in the world to be upset with, Louis Walsh would be about the last person. I mean, he's probably the nicest man on the planet.
He wasn't nice those few weeks, I tell you. There were some colourful words coming out of my dressing room backstage.
When you first joined the judging panel, it was a fairly controversial appointment. Now, Noel Gallagher even said, if there's one person in the room who wouldn't know talent if it kicked them in the arse, it's Dannii Minogue. What did you feel when you heard him say that?
I was surprised he knew who I was. But there are a lot of articles written to say, why does she have the right to be there? And I kind of just said to everyone, I agree with you. I don't know if I can do this, but it's an ace job, and I'll just have a go and see what happens. And if I'm no good, get rid of me.
There were, to put it mildly, some tricky moments when you first came on the show, and with Sharon Osbourne in particular. And I interviewed Sharon in this very hot seat. And
Which
I know,
I've never seen,
I know
by
you've
the
never
way.
seen this.
I've heard clips of that, but you're about to show me?
So because you missed it, we thought we'd show you a few of the highlights. I mean, do you want to see this?
Yeah, go on.
OK. Let's clear it up once and for all, because I'm sure everyone here, like me, wants to know. What's the truth about why you left X Factor?
I left X Factor because of Dannii Minogue.
Why?
I didn't enjoy working with her at all.
What you're saying is it was a very real conflict between you. You really hated each other.
See, I didn't hate her because hatred is very close to love. It takes a lot of emotion, and I don't have that time for her. She'd just dismiss her. She's like an insect. She was like an insect, a mosquito. You know when you're on holiday and you keep bloody itching it and you're going, won't it go away?
What is your reaction to that?
You know what? I was so wanting to meet Sharon when I got to be on the show. I'd watched the Osbournes, I'd watched all the X Factor, I was a massive fan. And it couldn't have been more devastating to turn up day one at work, and it was pretty obvious she didn't want me there, and I didn't know why. And then it was just ups and downs from then throughout the season, and I tried with her, because on paper it looked like fun. Working with Sharon Osbourne, yes! In reality, tiptoeing around, it was tough at times, and I hate to think that someone who was the massive star of the show left because of me.
The dynamic of the panel completely changed. I mean, Simon was suddenly flirting with you, and you were much younger, and you were pretty, and all the rest of it. I could see why that would unsettle Sharon.
I think it unsettled all of them, and I think that was the point. I didn't want to upset people, but it was to shake the show up in general, and it did. It provided that pantomime that was beyond real.
What do you feel about Sharon now?
I admire a lot of things that she's achieved. I don't always admire the way she behaves, and I always wanted to meet Ozzy Osbourne, but I guess that's out of the question.
How competitive are you personally, do you think? You see, on
It's
X
not
Factor
in me.
now, you are a ruthless, competitive machine, aren't you?
Ruthless?
I asked Simon, I said, who's the most competitive? He went, oh, my God, Dannii. He said, she's unbelievable.
It is not. I think Simon and Louis are the most competitive, but they're jealous that I work hard with my artists and I have a close bond with them and all of that other stuff that I do.
You see, you come out with all this guff about I work with my artists, I made the best one win and all that kind of thing. Underneath it, you're thinking, I want to screw Carl and Walsh into the ground and I want them to land on Cheryl Cole, right?
No!
Yes!
No!
Be honest here, when Cheryl Cole was announced as the new judge, what the press latched onto very quickly must have been what was also a fear of yours, which is Simon up to his old tricks. He brings in this much younger, very pretty pop star, plonks her next to him, that you're getting the Sharon treatment. He's being mischievous again.
I think there was some hope or wish that I would turn into Sharon and rip off the eyelashes and the shoes and start swearing and walk out of the studio, but it's just not me.
Would you say you're good friends or not really?
I say we're work colleagues. She's gorgeous, she's adorable at work, she is what you see on the TV, that's genuinely her. But I don't have a phone number, we don't call each other, we don't hang out, but I don't hang out with the other judges either.
You normally are the consummate professional, and then a couple of weeks ago, you got caught up in a right old firestorm when you made your joke about Daniel Johnson.
I had read his interview that had explained that he was happily, openly bisexual, and that was him, and he wanted people to just accept him as he is, which I do. We were joking about it offset before the show went up, and it just carried on to onset. And I guess because of the world that I live in and the kind of friends I have, I'm comfortable talking about those things. It kind of opened a can of worms when Simon reacted the way that he did. I then realised, oh, not everybody read the article, so then they didn't get the joke. The whole room stopped, and everyone just went, and then I knew, I could see this hand, in the corner of my eye, this hand come over. And then I heard the voice, what? And then you could feel the next reaction from the audience is like, it was terrible. And at that point, you just want to go, rewind.
And when you told the joke again, or explained it again...
He made me say it again, but by then it wasn't a joke, was it? It was like... and I felt like I was in the principal's office.
Yes.
Like, but what I was trying to say was just... And...
Did you think you might lose your job?
I knew that there were complaints, and they were kind of mounting by the minute. But if you can lose your job over that when it wasn't outing someone, I would have been surprised.
What do you look for in a man?
If I look back over my life, my boyfriends have been all completely different.
You're quite bossy as a girlfriend, do you think?
I don't know that I'm bossy.
High maintenance?
You know what they say, high maintenance thinks she's low maintenance, probably really high maintenance. I like to be protected, but I like to, you know, have my own mind and be strong.
Russell Brand tried it on with you, didn't he?
Yeah, it's creepy.
What did you feel?
Nothing.
Really? And he's supposed to be the world's sexiest Lothario, you know, irresistible.
I think some girls find him sexy, but it wasn't me.
And he actually genuinely slipped you the number.
I was a guest on his show, leaving the show, in the corridor. He's there going, and doing his very, funny routine. And then he gives me his number, to which I just go, thanks, and leave the building, and, you know.
You threw it away?
Yeah.
How quickly?
Very quickly.
It's not been easy for you on the romance front, but things are finally looking up.
Dannii's fame has spanned 4 decades, and she's never looked better.
You can choose a time in your life to blossom, and I think she's just on the right part of her life now, and that's great.
Dannii's in a very, very good place at the minute. She's very happy.
After a string of failed romances, Dannii found herself aged 36 and single. But waiting for her in a nightclub in Ibiza was a model called Chris.
When I first met Dannii, I actually didn't know who she was.
Chris is so unintimidated by Dannii's celebrity status.
The first thing I said was, "Hi, nice to meet you," but I had to say that about 3 times. 1, the music, and 2 was a language barrier.
What he's done for her is just give her a perspective on her life.
I've been called every name under the sun by my friends. They've called me the luckiest man alive.
He was just that missing little piece of the puzzle that she needed, and now it's just been tapped in, and she's just this complete picture.
She's the one. I've never felt like this before.
I'm absolutely thrilled for her. It's just feels like it's meant to be. It's right.
I was brought up around children, so I'm really keen to have children, but the answer I get back is, well, if you can go through the 9 months and you can have the babies, then yeah, I'm in. I mean, how hard can it be?
Sounds like somebody's getting a bit broody there, Dannii.
I need a little convincing. Sounds like a lot to go through. It's never been part of my world. I've never been maternal. I've never been one of those girls that says, by this age, I'm going to have this many kids. And I almost thought I was going to kind of escape it, just take a wide berth and go around it all. And now it's kind of, I'm in a relationship that is just so right. Maybe I have to start thinking about it.
What's interesting about Chris is that he's not famous at all. Is that part of what attracted you to him?
No, it's just him. Him with fame or without fame, or being a celebrity or not being a celebrity, he would always be the same guy, and he's just grounded and down to earth, and my friends and family love him, I love his family, and it all works.
And he's a bit of a toy boy.
I don't like the word toy boy, because it sounds like somebody you're just playing with.
You're 38, he's 30.
But for me, he's my man. He's so man. He so looks after me. He's not my little plaything.
He says you're the one. He knows it. Is he the one for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you going to marry him?
Don't know. I don't know. I guess he'd have to ask me, wouldn't he?
What would you say if he did?
I'd want him to be the first person to hear the answer, not you.
Does it feel nice that you've reached a place in your life where you found true love in your private life, and actually you've become truly loved by the British public?
I'd be happy enough just even with the first one, just to have found true love. I could honestly walk away from all of the performing if it's something that I wasn't good at and people didn't like seeing me do it. But to have both come together at once is just incredible.
And if I was a betting man, would you think worth a few quid on within a year, married with baby?
I don't know.
Would it be a nice way for the fairy tale to end, do you think?
I don't want the fairy tale to end. I want it to begin. This is the beginning for me.
Would it be a nice way for the fairy tale to begin?
I think there's some things, and I've revealed a lot tonight, that are just between me and Chris. And as time goes on, we'll see what happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dannii Minogue.
And there is more where that came from too in Dannii Minogue Uncut. Piers Morgan's life stories on ITV2 this coming Tuesday at 9 p.m.